Hey, how's it going, guys? My name is Graham. Welcome back to more Delta Rune secrets, Easter eggs, and what have you. I already did a big 30-minute video on this, which was intended to be as comprehensive as I could possibly manage. And in the week or so since that was made, it has had a huge outpouring of support. So first of all, thank you guys so much for that. That's incredible. But second, people have had all sorts of comments, and I went searching for extra Easter eggs and hidden things, and there are a lot. A lot of the stuff that's covered in this video isn't going to make a lot of sense unless you saw the first one. I never use these things, but I'm going to use one of those things in the top right. One of those little alerts that says go check out the other video. So go do that first if you haven't. And off the bat, I have a few small corrections or follow-ups to make, so let's get into some of that stuff. I pointed out the 3 specific anagrams of Undertale, Ralsei, and how Chris kind of loosely fits in there. The number one most commented comment that came up like 100 times in the other video is that Suzy is an anagram for issue and Chris is an anagram for risk. Yes, these are both true. Issue kinda seems like maybe sorta kinda a thing, but if you ask me, they're just coincidence words. One could say that perhaps issue and risk are unrelated. But hey, I certainly don't want to stop people from speculating. I wouldn't put it past Toby to make every single name in the game an anagram. So maybe issue and risk do become important in Chapter 2, we'll have to wait and see. Mostly I just wanted the on-screen joke of the fact that Delta Rune and Undertale shared their letters with several specific words and phrases. Yeah, there's some weird ones in there. Also, it is just kind of interesting that Chris, specifically spelt this way, is the name for a specific type of knife, which at the very end of the game obviously plays a fairly important role. That could be another just coincidental thing, though. Now, normally a port of a game doesn't add any real content, but of course Undertale would be the exception. In the Switch port of the game, you can visit the Clam Girl. I'm visiting Waterfall from the city. Synchronicity? My neighbor's daughter looks about your age. Her name is Suzy. I feel like you two should be friends. You have a neighbor's blessing. Not knowing where I live is no issue. Fate finds a way. In life's grand scheme, she might be why you came here in the first place. The Switch port of Undertale only came out about 6 weeks before Deltarune. Considering he had been working on it for years, Suzy was absolutely a developed, created character at that point. Toby knew exactly what he was doing. Does hint that these games are a little more connected than maybe he's making them out to be. That's an extra cool, extra deep little nugget. In the previous video, I had showed that when you name your character Suzy, then it gives you this extra little bit of dialogue about you're about to meet someone very special. And I said that if you make it Suzy, Chris, or Ralsei, you get the same result. That is incorrect. It does not work for Ralsei. But the interesting thing is it does work for Noelle. It's those 3 characters, Suzy, Chris, and Noelle. So maybe Ralsei is the interesting character they're about to meet, but there is no Noelle in the Dark World. I don't know, there's a lot of questions there, but it is different than what I said before. The Delta Rune shows up all over the place. It's a very common recurring theme as it would be, but you can see here on like the one on your carpet, the 2 outer triangles point upwards and the middle one points down. So it's very strange that on Toriel's house specifically, it looks like the 2 outer ones are pointing down and the middle one is pointing up. Could be crazy, but I think that's the only instance in the entire game where it is that way. Now, in the last video, I pointed out the fact that when you first interact with the trash can, it says somehow it's emitting a pleasant floral scent. I said that maybe that's just Toriel taking good care of her house. Later on in the game, Toriel very clearly throws Asgore's flowers in the trash, and as many people pointed out, what probably is going on is Asgore has sent many flowers, and all of them are ending up in the trash. There's 2 particular instances with these flowers that I personally haven't been able to recreate. One is you place the bouquet on the ground and gave it a little pat. And the other one is you throw the bouquet of flowers on the ground like the piece of trash that it is. Shows maybe a little bit of resentment for Asgore there, but there's obviously very particular conditions to satisfy to make those happen, and I can't do it. So instead of throwing these flowers on the floor or giving them to Toriel where they're inevitably going to end up in the trash, give them to Alphys. Oh, Chris, do you want to talk about something? Have the flowers. Oh, these flowers, they're from your dad? He always asks how you're doing in school, then gives me a bouquet of them. Actually, that he always gives me flowers. Really makes me wonder if he likes the awesome comics I lent to him. Honestly, he kind of reminds me of a superhero, Chris. He's huge and can kick my ass. So you know they go somewhere where they'll be appreciated. A lot of people have speculated that maybe all of this in the trash is a result of Toriel repeatedly throwing out all of Asgore's flowers. This little bit of dialogue gives the sense that these are all intended for Alfie's and that she's actually taking care of them here. Just kind of an interesting little parallel here. I don't think there's a lot to read into, but it is interesting that in the overworld, when you're trying to make your group, you cannot pair off. It's no longer an option. Your only option is to join up in a group of 3. And then later on down in the dark world, your only option is to make a group of 3. Pretty on the nose, but kind of an interesting little thing that occurred. There's obviously the whole mystery man thing with the egg, and there's a whole thing there. And then eventually you can end up with the 2 eggs in the fridge. But there is also another egg existing in the overworld. Comes up very early on in the game. There is, I think, nothing to be read into there, just yet another egg. Are you ready for the Sadie Hawkman's dance? I don't think this is super common or well known anymore these days, but Sadie Hawkins dances are ones where the girls invite the boys. It's like a fun little tradition that they used to do back in high school, and I'm not sure if it's common enough for people to know offhand, so that's what that is referencing there. But this one's a little different. In this dance, all the chaperones wear giant hawk heads and screech at any students that make contact while dancing. It's a little more aggressive. Now, the first time you ever get down into the dark world, on the second screen, there's a place where you can stop and save. When you go to save, there's actually already an entry there. Chris has a save file, specifically Chris. But once you click save, you don't save as Chris, you save as whatever you titled your creator as. The first time I played, it happened so quickly I didn't even stop and think about it. So thank you to everyone who commented about that. There's no way that isn't significant. Another thing that I find interesting about it though, any additional save file or second playthrough or anything you do, when you come to the dark world, it is empty. Chris has already been overwritten. He's gone. In this land, only eyes blinded by darkness can see the way. And so what can obviously be read into this is that most characters' eyes are obscured for the entire game. But at various times we do get to see every character's eyes. With Chris, we don't actually see his eyes until the very, very end. And it's when he's alone and it's quite sinister. So this line that originally seems like it just ties directly to the eye puzzle that takes place next to it about blinding the eyes, seeing the way, all that. There could be a lot more to that line than I originally thought. Interestingly, Ralsei and Flowey give you the exact same tutorial. See that heart? That's your soul, the very culmination of your being. It varies by like a word or two, but it's essentially the same thing. In the opening part of the Dark World, there's this hole in the wall that has a glow shard. During the tutorial, you can insist that Ralsei teaches you how to use items. All he has to say is, you use them and something happens. Is that sufficient? That's all he has to say about items. Only Ralsei can actually use the glow shard, but when he does, nothing happens. There's kind of this interesting little dynamic of that not coming together how he explained. The glow shard is kind of confusing because there is a way to actually use it. Now, as far as I've found, the only time you can actually do anything with the glow shard is using it against these Rudens. Ralsei used the glow shard, Ruden became enraptured. Both of them there, and the glow shard disappeared. Here I am rudely attacking them, but they can now be spared immediately. But for whatever reason, that is the only thing you can do with that item. Another item that doesn't really appear to have a lot of use is the manual. You can use it against certain enemies and they get bored and fall asleep, but the main use seems to be against this Clover mini-boss. Clover grew close. Chris reads the manual. Clover became sentimental. Aw, he made that so caring. Isn't it a bit boring? It's so cute. I want it. That dialogue all makes sense in the current context of the game, but it makes even more sense when you know that in the game files, you could originally open up the manual and flip through it. Here are some of the pages from that manual. You can see it's very homemade. It is quite adorable. And so you can imagine that that specific bit of dialogue, while still making sense now, would have even more to it if viewing the manual did still exist in the game. Now, just beyond the great door here, there is a save spot. The first time you hit it up, it says, "With the door closed behind you, your adventure will begin. The power of adventure shines within you." If you wait till you get all the way to the end here, right before taking on the boss fight with the Chaos King, and then do some big time backtracking, and I mean big time, all the way back to the very start of all of this. You can go all the way back to the save point in front of the door here. The door is still closed. The power of backtracking shines within you. So you can't actually go back through the door or anything like that, but it's just a funny little bit of text to say, hey, thanks for giving it a try. One thing that I absolutely love in the game, and something I love in real life, is names that biologists end up giving to groupings of animals. Ones that people commonly know, a flock of crows is called a murder. A grouping of eagles is called a convocation. A group of foxes could be called a skulk. There's like an absurd amount of these in real life, so I really love that Toby included that in the game. You can have a board of Jigsawries. I think the only other instance of this is you can run into a necklace of Rudens. For whatever reason, only the 2 different enemy types received these grouping terms. So the first time that you actually fight this thing, his name is C-Round. So you can either call him C-Round or K-Round when he gets finally crowned, so that could stand for King Round, but if you say it together, his name is just Crowned. Kind of a full circle thing there, I guess. Of note in Sham's shop is this little doll in the corner just to the left of his head there. This is actually a Temmie-chan doll. There's the Temmies in the Undertale universe. Temmie-chan herself actually worked as an artist on Undertale, and so putting that on the shelf there is just kind of her putting in a little reference to herself. In this little puzzle where you go to get one of the broken key pieces, you're supposed to have gone to the castle first so you know the order that these are meant to be in. From the bottom, the order of our rooms in Card Castle. Of course, if you haven't been there, you won't know it. But if you actually solve the puzzle without having gone to the castle because you've already done the game, you know it, or you just do enough random guesses that you eventually get it, you can reread the sign, really emphasizing that it's impossible if you haven't been there. Way to stick it to that sign. You aren't the boss of me, sign. It's a shame you guys don't make it any further because my guys are about to smash you into blood. Lots of blood, splooshing blood, very gross and bad. So bad that it's gonna need a bucket. What the hell is up with the bucket though? It's to put the blood in. Yeah, I'm not supposed to make a mess. This is one I wouldn't have known without your guys' comments, so again, thank you. Turns out Toby Fox has actually made music for Homestuck. I don't know anything about that world except for the limited amounts that people have told me, but there's kind of like a weird little PG version of reproducing in that world that involves buckets. I don't really understand how things work in that world, but it wouldn't be such a stretch to think that Toby put this on here as a little tribute to Homestuck and a reference to his contributions to that webcomic. In the last video I talked about how there's this space that you can just kind of wander off into for whatever reason it doesn't work properly. A few people actually, had said they had heard there was something that happens with your phone here. If you try to make a call on your cell phone, it still makes the exact same sound effects that it did otherwise. So I'm not sure what the supposed secret was there. Maybe there's something that I'm not recreating properly, but just to put people's minds at ease, it does not seem like there's anything to do with the cell phone there. Now, in the last video, I pointed out how once you ring the bell, then the face of this guy falls off. That's pretty well known. And then when you go to the back here, you find this random NPC who looks an awful lot like the thing that just fell off that bird's face, but obviously not exactly. Someone actually went into the game's files, and the little sprite for the thing that runs off of the bird's face is also called Starwalker. So I guess they are technically the same. You talk to him, these birds are pissing me off. I'm the original Starwalker, and for whatever reason there's that weird space in between. And even stranger is the fact that pissing is capitalized and made yellow like that. There's no real apparent reason for that. Now this Starwalker isn't hidden in this area where there's all the cages and things in the prison. There's another Starwalker just chilling in the corner here. I forgot to mention this guy last time. This jail is pissing me off. I'm the original Starwalker. He has essentially the same dialogue. No idea what the purpose of this character is. Totally unclear if this is the same one we saw earlier, or if there's two of them and they're arguing about which is the original. It's weird. Now this took me way too many damn tries, but if you do this whole chase in this direction, then you can run after the face. If you don't touch the walls at all because they slow you down, you can catch up to them and quickly interact with it. You got $40 from Starwalker's Ambient Luster. So this bird face is 100% these Starwalker things, but there do appear to be many of them, all claiming to be originals. Who the hell knows? It's interesting that Suzy and Ralsei's designs both have hearts directly in the center of them. Chris doesn't actually have anything there, although in the various puzzles throughout the game where it zooms into your soul and you have to dodge between things, it highlights your soul then by kind of doing this transparency thing with yourself. So all three characters do technically have hearts in their center. What that has to say about their souls, there's a lot you could probably read into that. Off to the side here next to Sham's shop is a few of these tutorial masters. There's the Suzy master where you can ask her about Suzy. Talks about Suzy's always attacking. She'll smash them with a crushing chop. She strikes and does all that stuff, and Suzy kind of seems a little bit pleased about all of this. If you look at her stats here, her rudeness is at 100, her crudeness is at 100. Now we got Suzy's rudeness down to 99. She's a slightly nicer person, and you can come back to the Suzy master and he'll have different dialogue to say. Warning, the days of warning have long since passed. The circumstances changed pretty fast. A fact. Suzy seems to have changed just a hair. That kind of growth is actually rare. And attack, Suzy's Buster, rude as may be, will deal more damage if you just press Z. Just a fun little bit to reflect the fact that her character has grown. Now in the previous video I kind of made fun of this worm for being totally useless. Before the king came along I used to eat the leaves from this tree, now I still do that. Such is the way of the worm. Someone commented with the theory that maybe this is kind of a bit of meta commentary on the game, like nothing you do matters. There's also a recurring thing where Rule's card continually calls you worms. It comes up many times in all of his dialogue trees. So I don't know, maybe that does tie into to the worm from earlier in the forest. We're worms, things just don't affect us. But since some of his dialogue is already a direct reference to I am mean.
Lost, frightened, confused, good!
There's also a chance that this is just referencing the fact that that character always used to call the player bookworm. I somehow spent like a full minute talking about this in the other part, but the stupid thing on the wall that I kept saying looked like bold and brash. When they talk about it's a picture of a green turtle and then it's signed Alvin, for whatever reason I had that in my mind as that was the artist. Realistically, it's probably just indicating that this is a drawing of Father Alvin who hangs out outside the church in town. Makes just way more sense. And I had pointed out all the cards and everything all over the floor. One thing that's extra funny is there's this tiny little red piece on the edge of the board here, and that probably is the K round. This is definitely Napstablook's house, and in the last part I talked about how there's theories that it's actually Mettaton staying in here. Afraid no one's home, darling. Why don't you prance on home? Knock knock again, I'm telling you they're not home right now. Oh, you just wanted to talk to me? My apologies, beautiful. I'm afraid I'm a bit of a nobody. And so the darling, beautiful, things like that, it seems like Mettaton is staying within Napstablook's house, whereas Mettaton's house is usually next door. It leans the opposite direction, and it has a pink color. Kind of the new running theory is that this is Mettaton when they are still a ghost, when they're Hapstablook, as Papyrus would call them. In this world, Alphys either isn't the brilliant scientist that she is in Undertale, or they never crossed paths. But likely what's going on is Mettaton is still a ghost, uncomfortable with their body, and as such has become kind of a recluse, and now just hides away in here. The interesting thing is that Napstablook does appear to still be in the game, and that he's actually hanging out at the police station. You knock on the door of the police station, someone's coming up to the window, they just close the blinds. Seems like the police aren't really feeling it right now. This is a line that Napstablook uses when you fight them. It's part of their dialogue for one of their non-attacks. Another interesting thing is that at the end of Undertale, it says that Napstablook kind of avoided the Azrael apocalypse, or whatever you want to call it, by simply closing the blinds and hiding away. So this is very in character, and it would make sense because Undyne and Napstablook were buddies in Undertale. They both ended up as police officers together. Kind of seems like Napstablook is the outgoing one, and Mettaton is the introvert this time. When you go to read the anime review, your options are yes or no. And some people have said that this is likely a reference to JoJo. No. I myself am not super familiar with it, but I'll take people's word for it that that's probably a reference. You can check up on the annoying dog who's working away on a game in the lab and you don't want to interrupt them. If you check it a second time, you look through the window and they're just playing the maracas. As we talked about last time, if this dog's a stand-in for Toby, then put those maracas down and get to work on Chapter 2, Toby. It's not doing any work at all. This might take a while. When you talk to Sans, one of the options is you can talk to him about friends. I just moved here, so I hardly know anyone. Why? Got anyone I should know better? My mom. Your mother, huh? Too late. I already befriended your mom last night. Not a secret or anything, but this SOB's over here making jokes about sleeping with your mom. A lot of people in the comments had questions about going behind any of the buildings, seeing as that was a thing you could do with Sans' house in Undertale. If you go up and around the corner, it's kind of strange because these three rooftops don't fit with the buildings underneath, but no, there is no way to access the backside of those buildings. You know, there's lots of opportunity to go behind buildings and stuff. I've checked them all, it doesn't seem like there's anything you can actually do. This is one that should have been much more obvious that occurred to me essentially immediately after uploading the part 1 of this little series. Knock knock, no response, but the distant trousel of bones. Bone Trousel is the name of Papyrus's theme track. Just whoosh, right over my head. Should have been a very, very obvious reference. What's interesting is you can't talk to Papyrus, you don't interact with him, you don't see him anywhere in this game, although the sound effect for his dialogue still exists in the game files. I previously mentioned that there's an everyman in the graffiti in the corner. There is also an Ice E, if anyone's wondering what the other one is. You can see the Ice E again here on the pizza sign. It also looks very much the same as it did on Papyrus's crossword puzzle in Undertale. In the last video, I sped up this sound effect to 500%, and it sounds like the Gaster sounds. But someone in the comments said that it was slightly too slow. It actually hits the right speed at 666. Just another cool little tie-in there of Gaster being associated with 666. Now, there's quite a bit to talk about with the Jevil. I didn't talk about him very much before. I only just kind of mentioned how you unlock that fight and the fact that it's hard. I didn't really get into it. There's a lot to talk about here. So you can't actually do a genocide run in this game. Anytime you try to fight anything, it just runs away once it gets to low health. Even if you pacify versus fighting the king, either way he falls to his knees exhausted and tricks Ralsei into healing him. Depending on which route you went, there's a little cutscene that plays out slightly differently, but it all plays out largely the same. So while the king battle kind of bends the rule, I think the Jevil battle is the only one with two distinctly different outcomes. Should you choose to pacify Jevil, it plays out like this. What fun! I'm exhausted. You kids tired me up. Now I will sleep for the other 100 years. Unfortunately, you kids cannot have such a pleasant dream. From now a nightmare will awaken in your hearts, in the shadow of the night's hand. Lightners, can you stop it? Either way, a mischief, a chaos. Lightners, from inside your little cell, take this and do your strongest. And then he gives you the Jevil's tail that's added to your armors. You can go and equip it. A J-shaped tail that gives you devil energy. If instead you choose to fight Jevil and ride that battle out to the bitter end, the dialogue is a little bit different. Ha ha ha, what fun! You're fast, strong, but there are yet faster, yet stronger. The hand of the night is drifting forward. Soon, the queen returns and hell's roar bubbles from the depths. Lightners, can you stop it? Either way, a mischief, a chaos. Lightners, from inside your little cell, take me and do your strongest. And in this time he gives you the Devil's Sword. The inventory text for this reads, a skull emblazoned scythe axe. Reduces Rude Buster's cost by 10. Now both the knife and tail cannot be sold, and shopkeepers will treat them as if they're empty inventory slots if you try. If you die at any point in the game, if you lose, then you just kind of revive, you go back to your last save point. If you actually lose to the Devil, it has this whole bit of text here. It appears you've reached an end. Will you try again? If you choose no, the game actually just goes dark and you have to close everything down and reboot it. If you choose yes, then the future is in your hands. And then you come back to your save point. But still, that's the only time that text comes up. I believe Jevil is the only character in Deltarune who actually speaks. He has a few different lines. He says, I can do anything, chaos, chaos, metamorphosis.
Metamorphosis? I can do anything.
Now, out of one of the most obscure references that there is in this game, some of these lines come from Loose Clown, a line sticker set. Of all the things to reference, I don't know why this, but thank you to the people who pointed that out. That is interesting to say the least. If you go and talk to Sham after the end of the Jevil battle, he has a lot to say, but I specifically want to focus on his use of the line, dark, darker yet darker, because that is specifically a line out of the Gaster entry 17. These connections just keep growing and growing. Some of the folks over on Reddit discovered an awesome series of prompts that you get when you copy and erase save files. There's all sorts of different interactions that play out there. I think you have to do it on a fresh install, so I don't want to do it on my own save file, so I am going to directly use theirs. First off, if you try to copy a file that does not exist, it is barren and cannot be copied. Choose the one to copy, choose the target for the reflection. The division is complete. Now copy your file and choose the target as the one you just copied. Overwrite or do not. If you say do not, it retained its original shape. Same sequence of things there, and do overwrite. It will be subsumed. It conformed to the reflection. If you try to copy a save file onto itself, it reads it is immune to its own image. Choosing one to erase, you choose an empty slot. It was already gone. Select to erase, go to your copy, yes or no. No, then it was spared. Erase again to the copy, yes. Then it will be destroyed, erase or do not, then it was spared. Erase, truly erase it, yes, definitely confirm. It was as if it was never there at all. I left this to the very end of the video because it's just crazy, and I hadn't seen anyone else talk about it, so good work to those guys over on Reddit who found that one. It's really cool. Guys, I did not think that this video was going to end up as long as it did. I waited a full week after putting out the first one to wait and see what kind of feedback people gave, what new things were discovered. I didn't expect to make essentially a same length video again. That's insane. But thank you guys so much for supporting it. I hope you like this one as much as the first. If there's more things that come up, I'll consider making a third video, but I'll do it something like a month down the line once a substantial amount of things have cropped up. But who knows, maybe not that many more things will be found. It's hard to say. I very much appreciate you guys watching. Thank you again. Thank you for the 100th time. For those of you who have clicked that subscribe button, I do want you to be aware it is primarily a Let's Play channel. If you're curious, let me know a genre of games you like, and I'll reply directing you to a series of ours you might enjoy. Otherwise, thank you guys all so much for watching, and I'll see you again soon.